Hi, everybody. I'm Rebecca Guanson with the Keystone Crisis Intervention Team, and I am here for our monthly volunteer spotlight, where KCIT spotlights some of our amazing members that are behind the profound work that KCIT does. And today, I'm lucky enough to be here with Lisa Zoll. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for taking time to be with me.
Thanks for having me.
Let's jump right in.
Okay.
Give us a little bit about you and your background and what you're doing right now.
So I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I currently have my own practice. It's called Grief Relief. So I do a lot of work with folks that are challenged usually by some sort of traumatic loss, is what I'm finding. And I started the practice back in 2018, and has been growing ever since. I started by myself, and I now have 3 other sort of part-time therapists doing some work. And we're starting to engage in a lot more trauma work because we've realized that the people that are seeking help for grief are also experiencing trauma in the way that they lost their loved one by suicide, overdose, accident, prolonged illness, or something like that. So we are really kind of realigning our focus to not only work with grief, but trauma and traumatic grief.
That's amazing service that you're bringing to the world, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you.
How long have you been with KCIT, and what brought you to KCIT?
I've been with KCIT, I think, going on 4 years now. And I found out about KCIT through my friend Lynn Shiner. She and I started doing some speaking about a concept we developed about grief called the event, the work, and the forever. And that work was based on the tragic loss of her 2 children. So we were invited to speak at a KCIT conference in State College. And I had never heard of KCIT, but once I saw, what the concept of KCIT was, I was drawn to it because I used to be a volunteer firefighter in my hometown. And I did that for about 5 years back in the 90s, which is probably aging myself a little bit. But so KCIT, the concept of, crisis intervention aligned with, that the passion I had for firefighting at the time, and then my professional work. So it kind of, it met in the middle there, the 2 concepts of crisis intervention and also being a clinical social worker.
So I know there was a little article recently published about you, having you quoted it. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Well, of course, let me talk about that. So what happened was I was in a session, and when I came out, my administrative assistant said, you might want to return this call. And it was from this reporter from the New York Times. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? So she was working on an article about disenfranchised grief, or unsupported grief. And she had found an article that I had published when I taught at Temple University in their Master of Social Work program for a number of years. And I had published an article about disenfranchised grief. And she found that and was trying to track me down through Temple because it said I worked there, but I was no longer there, so I'm here. So she found me online, and we had a 45-minute conversation about disenfranchised grief and what it means. And I'm actually quoted in the article with the person that coined the term, Kenneth Doka. So so we were on the phone for 45 minutes, and I'm thinking, this is going to end up on the editing floor. And once the article came out, it was like, it did not end up on the editing floor. And I was, I'm still a little bit speechless about it.
It's a fantastic article, and we're going to be linking it below with the spotlight on our social media as well. Everybody should check it out. It's fantastic.
Thanks.
Lisa, when you think back on your time with KCIT, are there any moments that stand out more than others to you?
Well, when I joined KCIT, it was with the intent of becoming a trainer, but I had to go through the basic training program that is offered through KCIT, which, by the way, is a really well done training and very helpful. And So I went in with the hope of being a trainer because that fit with my teaching background. So going through the training was very, very enlightening and helpful. But then, I have been drawn to the death notification training that I've been able to do numerous times, because it fits with, we get to talk about loss and grief and, how to talk to people in the time when they're really at their worst. So, it really talks about sort of how to be good at crisis intervention, not say the wrong things, support them at that very moment, and try to provide some assistance. So it fits with kind of my clinical background as well. So I enjoy teaching that, and the one thing that I love about it is that there's no papers and tests to correct like there is when you teach. So that is one big part of it that's great, but I think the training itself is really helpful as well, and the subject matter just fits in my wheelhouse. So that's, and I've met some very, some great people through that as well, other trainers and as well as the participants.
Yeah, we have some absolutely amazing trainers and participants. I mean, that's kind of what inspired the whole concept of the spotlights.
Yeah.
To show folks, like, we've got some amazing people you can connect with. Lisa, would you like to share a fun fact about yourself?
Well, I think we already shared that. the fun, I mean, there's some highlights in my life, obviously, but being quoted in the New York Times has to rank up there pretty high.
I think that's pretty good for a fun fact.
I can kind of come up with something, but I don't know that I could top that at this moment off the top of my head.
I'm with you. Let's stick with that one. Okay. For the people out there that are looking at KCIT's information and kind of kicking around the idea, should I become a volunteer? Should I take a training? Why? What would your answer be to that? Why become a volunteer? Why take a training? Why become trauma informed?
Well, for me, okay, so I'll just talk from both a personal and professional level. So from a professional level, I think it aligns with, our human service background. As clinicians or as social workers, or as, we have a lot of folks out there that do work with as advocates, victim advocates, and in those sort of fields. And I think that, being a volunteer for KCIT is just an extension of the work we do. So I think it's a great way to be involved in the communities that are in the midst of crisis. So from a professional level, like I said, I think, it just fits with our sort of our calling, so to speak. And on a personal level, I've appreciated learning. Like, I didn't learn a lot about crisis intervention in my program that I went to. It wasn't a huge part of it. So this really helped to solidify, providing crisis intervention and providing learning about the debriefing process. So on a personal level, it helped me grow. I should say on a personal level, it helped me grow professionally. Mm-hmm. So I think, for any of those or all of those reasons, and sometimes people just feel called to be part of something. And so this is a group that, you get to be part of. And while the work it can be pretty, we're called in at the worst times of people's lives, it's also a chance to help them create a narrative that maybe is helpful in the long run. Like, when you talk about how they found out about things, or the people that came in and spent time talking with them and letting them talk about what happened, it can be part of, a narrative that they're building around a tragic event.
Beautifully put. Yeah, I agree with you. Lisa, thank you so much for spending time with me.
It's always nice to see you, Rebecca. Thank you for asking me to do this. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take good care. Bye.